Daf Pei Hey Amud Aleph will begin at Pei Dalet Amud Beis right at the bottom. Amar Yura Mar Shmuel Borish Ben Shtei Chatzeres. If you have a pit with water that's between two chatzeres, Mufleges Mikoisel Ze Arbo, it's pulled away from the one wall. The edge of the pit is pulled away from one wall four or more tvachim. Mikoisel Ze Arbo, and from the other wall 4 or more tvachim. The people from one chatzer can put out a board or a slat, and they can put out a ziz kol shehu mimala of any size, and ziz kol shehu mimala, and the one on the other side similarly can do the same thing. So to illustrate, if we have two chatzeres, there's a chatzer on each side, and there is a path between them. So the path doesn't lead to the Rishus Harabim, it doesn't lead to any of the chatzeres, and the chatzeres are not open to the path. So therefore, as far as the path is concerned, there's no need to make an Eruv over here. You have a bore that's in the middle, a bore with water. Now, it's not close to either one. There's a distance of 4 tvachim or more between the edge of the bore and each side. So, strictly speaking, the chatzeres have only a difficult use of this bore to draw up the water, and it's not really considered a use that would require an Eruv. Now, even though if they have a use that we'd have for both people in two chatzeres, they both are able to use something in common, they need an Eruv to be able to both use it and to carry it from it to their own chatzeres, but that's only if it's a use that is considered to be a significant use. Over here, since it's 4 tvachim away, so it's a very difficult use over here. They have to throw a bucket down. They can't even lower it. They have to throw it and lower it and draw the water up, and draw the water from the bore and bring it up, and they have to do that. Each chatzer has the same and difficult use. Neither one of them has a use that's considered significant use because it's difficult for both of them. So really, it should be mutter for them to draw the water, because neither of the chatzeres have a significant use of this bore. To say that they have their tashmish over there and they're considered to be the users of it, and therefore other people can't use it, or there's two users of it, and therefore they would asr on each other. Neither of them has a significant use. Nevertheless, Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel that we have to make a heket. So you have to put a ziz kol shehu, a board. Each one has to put a board or slat, and over here, and it's only a heket. It's only as a siman to therefore to know that carrying from taking from something which is used in common, that's used jointly between two parties, normally requires an eruv. Something it's not mutter on its own, then you need a tikkun. You have to be masak in it. So we put over here this type of a heket. That's what Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. And Rabbi Yehuda Didei, however, Rabbi Yehuda himself says, no, that's not required. You can put he says it's afilu kanya. Rabbi Yehuda Didei, Omar, afilu kanya. It's not necessary, even a reed. So you can put a reed on one side, a weight on the other side, and that's sufficient. You don't need to put a ziz. What's the difference between a ziz and a kanya? The Rashba says that the ziz has to be at least a tefach, and the kanya can be a kol shehu. The Ritva says it's not mashma that it's a me'achilik in the shiur, it's a mashma that it's in the permanence, that ziz is something that's permanently is kavua, and the kanya is something which is a reed. It's there temporarily, but it's not fixed in that place. The Ritva also explains that what we're discussing over here is that what Yehuda says, it's a kanya, Shmuel says that it's a the Ritzel says that they're not arguing. It's not a machlekes. It's that Shmuel's statement was a ziz, and Rabbi Yehuda interprets it and says, but the meaning is not a ziz literally. Even a kanya is sufficient, but that is really what Shmuel meant, and there's no real machlekes. So that's the halacha that Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. Amalei by Rabbi Yosef, how the Rabbi Yehuda the Shmuel. He said this, Rabbi Yehuda said, he said it in the name of Shmuel. Now, so the way Rashi explains it, it's the Havmin over here is that in Abaya did not know the memra that Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. He heard that Rabbi Yehuda said this halacha. He said this halacha by the boar. And he didn't hear it that it was mentioned that Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. Now, Rabbi Yehuda had two Rebbeim. One Rebbe was a Rav, the other was Shmuel. So Abaya said that this halacha that Rabbi Yehuda said, he said it from Shmuel, his Rebbe Shmuel, and not from his Rebbe Rav. It's from this Had Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel he the Rav, because if it would be in the name of Rav, it wouldn't be consistent, it wouldn't be correct. Because Rav said, Ha'amar ein adam moser al chaver derech havir. A person doesn't answer on his friend if the use that he has is only ba'avir. If he only can use it through the air, meaning it is not a use that he can use easily. It's with difficulty. He can only use it with great difficulty. For instance, like throwing it through the air, which is with difficulty. It's not a pesach. It's not nichet hashmishtay. One person will not answer on the other person. So over here that we require this tikkun over here, require this ziyuz, must be that it's going in the name of Shmuel, and that Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel, not in the name of Rav. Well, where did he see that Shmuel holds that it would be also? Now again, Abaya did not have the version that Rabbi Yehuda said it beferish in the name of Shmuel, so the question is, well, where do we see that Shmuel says that one could answer on the other one, derech avir? Perhaps he'll say it's from the following. The Omer of Nachman Amar Shmuel. He said the case we had previously on Daf Pei Daled Gag Hasamach Rishus Harabim Tzarech Sulam Kavur Lahatiroi. That if you have a rooftop, there's a Rishus Harabim that passes in front of it. So the Rishus Harabim has access to this gag. There's also a second story that also has access to the gag and use of it. So they both have use of it. However, we say that they would assert on each other, even though the Rishus Harabim would have to be able to access the rooftop only derech havir, as we'll see in a moment. Nevertheless, we say that they would assert on the second story unless there's a sulam kavua lahatirei. The people on the second story have to have a permanent ladder that shows that the rooftop is designated for their use. Otherwise, the Rishus Harabim would assert on them. So you see that even though it's derech avir, even though the Rishus Harabim can only use the derech avir by means of throwing, nevertheless they would assert, and you need a tikkun. As Taisus explains that the reason that we're assuming that this is derech havir is that the use that the Rishus Harabim would have on the rooftop would be from a distance of 4 tefachim away, because we're assuming that they would put on the rooftop as they pass by, they would take heavy loads and put it on the rooftop. And heavy loads they would have to raise up by way of a stick and raise it up and horizontally and put it on the rooftop. That means that they would have to be a distance of 4 tefachim or more away and raise it up through laterally, horizontally, and then raise it up to the roof. So that is also derech havir. That's lo nichet hashmishtei. The Gemara says, no, there's not a raya from there. It's not a kasha. Didn't look at Rav Papa. Maybe over there it's like Rav Papa says, that over there it's what they use. The way they use it is very light objects. The way the light objects, and as Taisus explains, and therefore they don't have to be raise it up from a horizontal distance. It's very light. They can put it up standing close to the wall, and they can put it right up on top of the roof. And so therefore it's not considered derech havir. It's not considered a difficult use of it. It's not considered inconvenient, and it's not derech havir. So there's no kasha from there. So Elo Meha. So where do you see that Shmuel says That where do you see that Shmuel says that derech avir would be aser elamaha, which is the very case that we were just discussing. Now the Gemara is coming to the conclusion that the memra was actually said in the name of Shmuel. That elamaha zeh mitzis is called shemimale, v'zeh mitzis calls shehu mimale. That it says that each one of the chatzeres, in the case that we just had, that they have to put the ziz kol shutma, they have to make a tikva. So time the apik. Why is it mutter? Why can they draw the water from the well, from the bore? Because they made this tikkun, because they put out the ziz. Haloy apik, but if they did not put out the ziz, amrinan adam Yisrael chavir derech avir, that he would asa derech avir. So this memra, this is in fact, Rav Yehuda said it in the name of Shmuel. It was not Rav Yehuda on his own saying it. He said it in the name of Shmuel, and it was conveyed from Shmuel himself. Meaning, the point is that this is a memra of Shmuel. This is the shita of Shmuel that a person could aser derech avir. With Ramehecha, now that we mentioned that, that's machlokes Rav and Shmuel, that according to Shmuel you would aser derech avir, but according to Rav you do not aser derech avir. Where the question is, where do we see that Rav says you do not aser derech avir? From the following if you have two balconies that they both extend over the water, one on top of the other, if they made a mechitza for the top one, and they did not make one for the lower one, so as we learned just previously, they have the two balconies, they're over the water. They're not one on top of one. There's a higher and lower one, but it's pulled over, they're pulled away, dalet tvachim more from each other, not right one on top of each other. It's pulled away. If the top one has a mechitza, now, like we learned previously, in order to raise or lower the water, the bucket, and raise and draw water or lower it down, you have to have a mechitza, even though it's a suspended mechitza, but you have to have a mechitza over the water. Now, if the top one of the top balcony made a mechitza, and the bottom one didn't, shteim asurois ad she'arvu. They're both asur unless they make an eruv. They make an eruv, they would have to make an eruv, otherwise they both have use, and we're talking in a case where they both have the rights to use it. Even the lower one made an agreement that he has the right to use the upper one. So since they both have a use of it during the weekday on Shabbos, they would asur without an eruv. Now, so we say that shtei asuros ad she'arvu. V'omer Rav Huna Rav, he says lo yishan el b'smucha. Where do we say that would aser? That's only b'smucha, only when they're close to each other, when they're within 4 tvachim of each other, that they're within 4 tvachim. That's when we say that they would aser. El b'smucha aval b'mufleges arba, but if they're pulled away laterally, horizontally, 4 tvachim or more, el yana muteres v'tachtaina asura. Then we would say that the el yana is muteres, tachtaina is also, because the tachtaina is only derech avir. He only has a very difficult use of it. It's derech avir. He has to throw the bucket horizontally, vertically and horizontally, then that's derech avir, and it wouldn't asur. So you see clearly over here that Rav holds that if it's derech avir, that you would not asur. Where do we say that they have to be ma'arev? It's only whether within 4 tvachim, but if not, where the bottom's use of it is only derech avir, it would not asur. Where it says, no, it's not a ride from over there, because dilma shiny hacha, maybe it's different, the kaven, l'zeb is rika v'shilshul, because the bottom one is not only difficult in that it has to be thrown horizontally, it also has to be lowered. It has to go both horizontally and vertically. And so it has to be thrown, the bucket has to be thrown from the bottom one horizontally and up and lowered down through the hole in the balcony, through the mechitzas. So therefore, the Kem L'Zeb is Rika V'Shilshul, L'Zeb is Shilshul L'Chudei, and the upper one is only Shilshul, because L'Zeb is Rika, L'Zeb Pesach Domi is considered like the one has Rika, the one has a Pesach. Meaning, if in the case that we're discussing over here, both parties, both Chatzeres, have a difficult use of the bore. They both have to, now, the case that we had is that the bore is 4 tvachim away from the wall on each side, 4 tvachim or more. So both of them have a difficult use of it. So therefore, the question is over there, it's Tashmish al Yedei Zrika and Derech Avir, and does it also, do they also on each other? So Shmuel says that you do need a heker. But you can't bring a raya that Rav would argue over there, because over here, in this case, by the balconies, the reason that Rav said that if it's 4 tvachim or more away from each other, the top one is mutter, is because the bottom one has to both throw and lower. The top one only has to lower. So therefore, relative to the bottom one, the top one is considered to be easy, convenient use, a Pesach. So if one is a Pesach and one is with the Zrika and Shilshul, the other one is Avir, and the top one is easy usage, over there, Rav says the bottom one wouldn't answer. But in our case, where they both have a difficult use of it, perhaps he would say that it does answer. Hello, the Gemara says, Elamaha. We see from the following that Rav says that we do not answer derech avir. What's the case? Tomer of Nachman Amar Rabba Baravu Amar Rav. He said in the following case, he said Shnei Batim v'shalosh churbas beineim. If there are 2 houses and there are 3 ruins between them, 3 churbas, 3 areas which are ruined between them. So, for instance, if we have a scenario like this, there's 2 houses and they're churbas, they have ruined houses between them. The walls are partially broken down, they're breached, the walls between these 3 areas. And the way Rashi explains it is these areas are owned by these 2 householders. They own the areas over here, and they have use of it. During the week, they use these areas. And the question is, on Shabbos, what is mutter? If they're not ma'ariv together, which areas are mutter to which houses? Which houses have the use of which areas? So we say that Zeh mishtamesh b'som chol yedei zrika, Zeh mishtamesh b'som chol yedei zrika. Each one can use the area next to him al yedei zrika. Now over here there are windows here, so they have access through the windows. They have windows here, they have access through the windows. Each one can use the churba that's next to him. They can't use the middle one, we'll see why, we'll discuss that shortly, or a little bit later. But they can each use the one that's next to them. Now, this house over here, for it to be able to use this churba is only through throwing it past here. So this is through zrika. This house can use, part of it is not through zrika, it can lower it down. The extended part is through zrika, but part of it is directly. So we say that notwithstanding that this could throw it to here, this house could throw it to the churba over here, and it has tashmish derech avir, it does not aser this house from using this one. So its use derech avir, to use it, to throw it over here, does not aser this one from using this area. So we see therefore that tashmish derech avir, if it's only using it through the airspace, it won't aser. And similarly, this house doesn't aser this one from using this area, because he also only can use it by throwing it. This one can lower it down, at least a part of it. The extended area is through throwing, but through part of it is through lowering it down. So therefore, the chayra, we would see from here that Rav holds that if it's only tashmish derech avir, it doesn't aser. That it will not aser one through the other, even if the use is only a use that is through throwing, then it won't answer it in such a case. So we've proven Rav's principle. Now, however, there seems to be a problem in this, because if this is the case, if it's really so that Rav holds that a person does not answer derech avir, why should the middle one be answered? The use of each house to the middle is only derech avir, and if you don't answer derech avir, why should the middle one become answer? So Yosef Rabbun v'kamal Shemaisa, he said over the Shemaisa, Amalei Rabbi Elazar. Rabbi Elazar said to him, he was with a Tmiya. Barbi Rav, Amar Rav Hachi. They said the Talmud Chacham, the learners in the yeshiva of Rav, did Rav really say this? Amalei, he said yes. Amalei Achi Ushpize, show me where he's residing. Show me where he's staying. Achalei showed it to him. Also, the coming the Rav came before Rav. Amalei, Amar Hachi, did you really say this? So Amalei, so he said, he said yes. Amalei v'hamar hu da Amar, but you, the master said, lazeb shil shil v'zeb zrika shnei masurim. Well, l'chayra, meaning underlying the question is, he says, it appears apparently that Rav, you are holding that the Tashmish Mishal Yedei Zrika, you do answer that Adam Israel Haver Derech Zrika, because otherwise, why should the middle one be also? Well, if the middle one is also, meaning you're saying that a person does answer Derech Zrika through Zrika, then the ones on the side should be also to each other as well. Because if you're saying that the middle one is also because they can use it by throwing, and we do answer Derech Zrika, well, then, if we answer derech avir, you could answer derech avir. What difference does it make that this one's use is easier, and this one, to use this one, is more difficult? It's only derech avir. And similarly over here, this one is easier through the window here, and this one is only through the avir. If we do answer derech avir, relative ease does not make a difference according to Rav. The fact that one is more difficult and then one is less difficult doesn't make a difference. As we learned before, when Rav said, because he said, you said, if you have a mound and one person can use the mound by lowering from an upper story, which is difficult, and the other one uses it by throwing from the bottom on top, meaning there's a 10 tvachim differential in the height, either in the lower down or higher up, but both of them it's with difficulty. Now, the fact that it's easier to lower it than it is to throw it doesn't make a difference according to Rav. They answer on each other. If one is a Pesach and one is a Shilshul, then we say, well, we attribute the use to the one that's with the Pesach. But if they're both difficult and one is more difficult than the other, then we don't say that we attribute it to the one that's less difficult. Well, over here, apparently, you do Aser Derech Havir, because the middle one is Aser. Well, if that's the case, then these two should be Aser as well. Why should they be Mutter? So he answered, Omer Le, Misav the Kaime Kishur. No, do you think that the case is the way you have it, that it's in a row, one next to each other? That's not the scenario over here. Loi the Kaime Kechatzuva. It's in a tripod. It's an arrangement of a tripod. Meaning the reason why the middle one is also is not because the use is derech avir. It's not used derech avir. And in a chanami derech avir, you do not answer, like we've established before. You do not answer derech avir. Why is the middle one also? Because the configuration is not kishur. It's not in a line. It's like in a configuration of what would be in a tripod, where you would have the two, one would be next to each other. You have the two orbits next to each other, and then you'd have the middle one. The middle one runs across. So the middle one runs across this way. Now there's partial mechitzas between them, which are breached, but the middle one is now along the back of both of these, which means is that this one has direct access to this churba. This one has direct access to this churba. So the houses open directly into this. This one opens directly into this. And they both open directly into here. So this is not, the use of the middle one is not only the avir. The middle churba, it's not through avir, it's through direct access. That's why they both have direct access to it, and they aser, and they therefore aser on each other because they both have direct access. Now, as far as the middle churbas are concerned, this one has direct access, at least to the part close to it. And to here, it's only avir. He doesn't aser on this one because we're going now, according to Rav, that you do not aser derech avir. So therefore, this one is attributed to this house. This one is attributed to this house because you can only use this churba through the avir. So each one, the one next to him, is mutter. But the middle one is also not because they use it derech avir, they have direct access to it. And therefore, they both use it, so they aser it on each other.